Welcome to Pirate Living Podcast. We're your hosts, Karan and Kristen. On this podcast, we are highlighting ordinary people living extraordinary lives. These are pirates who take small, bold actions daily to create social change. Pirate life is all about rebelling and breaking the rules for good. Creating lasting social change starts by first breaking our inner rules. After all, the hardest rules to break are your own. The pirates we highlight have dedicated themselves to creating good trouble.
Today, we are chatting with Matt Gallo, guide of the Mysummit.academy. Matt empowers creatives and entrepreneurs to realize their potential. He guides people to uncover parts of themselves that have become suppressed so that they can become the leaders that they were meant to be. He is leading a rebellion to encourage people to think deeply and challenge how they think for themselves. And we're excited to be talking with you today, Matt.
I'm so excited to be here. And Karan, did you memorize that introduction? I'm curious.
No,
I should by now.
I should have by now, but I am reading that off of my other screen. Yeah, no, not that impressive after a year.
Not yet, right?
Not yet. I'm still learning the definition of victim mentality. So,
yeah, we all are. We all are. It's a spectrum. How I imagine it.
But Karan, you don't go to sleep at night and start going through your head.
Just reciting.
Living podcast. I feel like that's something I would do.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, we're glad to have you here today. We actually, you were one of the people that helped us in our journey to the podcast by answering questions for us. So we're excited to be able to chat with you on this podcast now that it's a thing.
And a year later, you guys have done like 60 episodes, right? Something like that.
Yeah, well, I think you'll be our 75th.
75th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Congratulations.
So yeah, we'd love to hear about your pirate journey. Like, start wherever, whether it's childhood or recently, and then tell us about what brought you to where you are today and what you're doing.
I like how you say pirate journey. I didn't know it was a pirate journey until somebody told me it was a pirate journey. And that we were all pirates. We could get into that another time. And when you asked that question, like before we started recording, I started to think, at what point did I start to rebel? That's the first thought that came to my mind. And I remember being a rebellious kid. I was always this way. I really realized pretty early on that I loved getting outside. I loved breaking out of the norm, breaking out of the day-to-day, what we could call real life. And that was always on my mind. And I was told for a very long time as a kid that I had so much potential if I would only pay attention or do what I'm supposed to do. And as the rebel in me at 4 years old would think, let's not do that. Let's have some fun, right? And then I spend the next 20 years doing what I thought I was supposed to do because that's how you're raised. And when I finally got into the real world, I had to get a job. I had to start working. I started teaching, and that quickly became something I was resentful, like really having a lot of resent on, because I spent so much time following and conforming and doing and following that path that was set out for me. I didn't get to do a lot of other things. And while I did have a lot of opportunity. I spent my summers, in the outdoors working at summer camps. And I would, take opportunities anytime I could get to travel. I felt that I was still very much sheltered and I didn't have a lot of life experience. And I wanted to get out of that very quickly, that feeling that I was having. It was honestly, I was tired. I was exhausted all the time. My heart just wasn't in what I was doing. And then I found entrepreneurship, and that happened by accident. I started working at a CrossFit gym, sort of working. I would just be the guy that showed up every day and worked out and assisted the coach. I had a lot of coaching experience teaching swimming for a while. And then that turned very quickly into becoming a coach and opening a gym for the first time at 23 or so years old. Yeah, 23. And I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that I loved the freedom that it gave me and the opportunities. And I was terrible at it. I wanted to be really good at the coaching part. And I think I did a good job at that. You know, I taught swimming, I taught English, and I had a lot of time spent doing presentations and working on those skills. So I had that for me, but the business side was awful. And then that business shut down pretty quickly. We went out of business. I decided to shut it down about a little over a year into it, which was heartbreaking. If you've ever had to do that or leave something behind that you dump so much energy and effort into, it's painful. And for a while after that, I didn't know who I was, what I was going to do with my life, because I had just dumped so much of my energy and my money into this thing that I thought would work out. And fortunately, I met a lot of great people in that time who introduced me to even greater people. And I had the opportunity to get back into what I was doing, get back on my feet, learn a lot about the business side of running a gym, and then ultimately business in general. And in the last 3 months, I actually exited the gym that I had built. And now my focus is on enjoying my freedom as much as possible, really. I was just thinking before we got on this, I don't know how to work. I don't really know how to do it well, like the way other people work, but I'm really good at sprints. I'm really good at getting things going and generating ideas. And that was hilarious.
Sorry. My poster's
What was
falling.
that just fell?
It was nice distraction for everyone listening to.
It's all good.
It was a Language Ninja's poster of where do you feel your emotions in your body.
It's useful to have. Where was I? Yeah. So in the last 3 months, I've decided that, okay, it's time for me to go in a little bit personally and see what's happening, what I'm capable of, what my potential really is, which is something I've been exploring on, the personal development realm for the last 3 or so, 4 years. Imagine longer, but the things that I've done formally, we could say. And that's opened up a lot of doors. I realized the one thing I did, if I was going to work more, right, I needed to do something that was all me, that was so within integrity for me, that it was easy, that I could approach the work as something really fun and something I was tinkering with. That was always my thing, is I wanted to be playing. I wanted to be doing something, and I could solve problems like that really quickly. And so I knew that to work meant to incorporate everything that I really enjoyed. I loved coaching. That's one of my, I've been doing it for 15 years, since I started coaching swimming in high school. And that turned into a career path for me. And it's something I've refined over, that time. I also love the outdoors. I love adventure. And specifically, I love showing people what else is out there and what's possible. And, there were a lot of times thinking in the last couple of months, especially, from the business perspective, who am I trying to reach? What do I want to do? What problem do I want to solve? And I was reminded over and over of to make it fun, regardless of what I do. And so that's what I set out to do. And I just hosted my first outdoor leadership retreat last week in Colorado. That was like the dipping my toes into what I can do next. And long term, I imagine a school or an educational facility that empowers leaders using these outdoor experiences and getting them into getting them to explore, inside and outside. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm focusing all my attention on leadership development and getting people outside and free of the shackles,
So is that the Summit Academy then?
Yeah. The Summit Academy is it's my school. Let's call it that. The School of Matt.
So yeah, I'd love to hear more about what you did with the retreat there in Colorado.
Yeah. Well, so there were two things that happened. Well, there was only one thing that happened. There was the thing that I expected, planned for. None of that happened. Right? Then there was what actually happened, which I learned, that I could handle really well at this point. And my vision for that and for what I'm planning next is to find people who have that potential to do something really great. And for some reason they're stuck. For some reason there's an obstacle. And most of the time that's solo entrepreneurs who have been doing it for a while and they've seen success, in bursts, but nothing consistent. Right. And with the work that, we do from a language perspective and story work, we know how that comes about. And so that gave me a really great entry point to teach these really valuable skills that I call the 10 skills for optimal leadership. And when we start to dissect those 10 skills, I realize when in working with people, like these are the things that when we apply them after we work through their victim mentality, we apply these skills, they can really, start seeing a lot of change. And I mean, the people that I work with in my coaching and then on this retreat, they're all either coaches, they're entrepreneurs or creatives, right? Very we can leave it at that. And when we go through that personal development work, specifically implementing those 10 skills, which I could talk about in a bit, I start to see a lot of things change in their businesses, meaning things are just becoming easier. They finally know how they can, break through to the next level, whether it's identify more specifically who their ideal client is, or get things more prioritized on the back end, or fix something that wasn't working, or they hire people, right? So we see those changes. And then we also start to see the changes in their personal life. They are having better relationships with their wives, or they are starting to appreciate their time with their children more. And I mix that, right, the work with fun, because that's what I think it's supposed to be. But I see fun a little different than most people. For me, fun is like, hey, let's go beat ourselves up for like 8 hours and then celebrate it, right? I don't mean that literally. Sometimes, right, we train martial arts sometimes. That's fun. I mean, like, hey, let's go hike. Let's go climb a mountain. And let's go out in the dark and try to find this spot, right? Let's try to find our way back without a map. Things like that. Go out there, challenge your mind, challenge your body. And what I noticed happens when you do that is things come up, right? Probably some things from your childhood, little fears, anxiety, stress, tics, right? Ways you handle situations. And because we've created this container where you can feel really comfortable and really confident, you're going to work through those things openly. And so I told you there was exactly what I planned, and then there was what really happened. What I had planned is everything is strict and segmented, and we go on this hike and we have very strict breaks at this time, and we're going to work. We're going to do some personal development work. We'll do these exercises. Cool, right? And then other things get in the way, variables like rain or people, or just how we feel, right? How much sleep did we get the night before? How much coffee did we have? Things like that, which play a big role in how things go off. And what ended up happening is everything that I wanted to do happened, right? We had a lot of fun. I got to present on these great topics and teach these different skills, and it happened really fluidly. Everything just weaved into each other. And so while we're out on a mountain, I had a 14,000-foot mountain in Colorado. And this was the feedback I got from one of the participants. He said, while we were up there, there were moments where I wanted to give up, where I wanted to quit, because it's hard. You're at high elevation. Everyone came from sea level that was there. It was brutal. And there's thoughts, there's thoughts that go through your head. And they said, every time that would happen, you'd come in with a question that would get us to think. And that gave enough spark to go to the next, go a little bit further until the next, statement came through your head. It was overall a really enlightening experience this is just from a business perspective, thinking about planning an event. I realized I can have the plan as set in stone as I want. Most of the time it's going to work out. And if I try to force it, it doesn't work. I'm going to encounter a lot of resistance,
Yeah, event planning is fun like that. The people factor. It's better to over plan than under plan as well.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were asking questions as people were whether you realized it was happening or not, you're asking questions as they're hitting those uncomfortable spots. So what were some of those uncomfortable questions you were asking them to help them move forward?
Good question. So I'll give you some context. We started this hike. We got up at 3:30 in the morning, and the goal is to start before sunset. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The weather can change usually as the sun gets higher in the sky. It warms up and condensation rises and starts to rain around noon. This happens pretty predictably, even if there's no forecast. So rule of thumb, be on the way down before that. I wanted to get up and have time in the rest of the day too, right? So I planned for like 8 hours on a mountain. That's a long time. So we get up early. We get to where we're going to start hiking, the trailhead. I do a quick brief and do some breathing exercises and then start hiking. And I told them, hey, let's go for 1 hour. And then we're going to stop and set an intention and do some breath work and do some thinking and whatever. So we start moving and everyone feels great, right? Because it's first thing in the morning, you're doing this, you're excited. You don't realize you only slept 3 hours. And then we take a little break and we look at the time. It's been an hour. Great. And I tell them, hey, we're like a fifth of the way into this, right? 20% done to the top. And then we have to come all the way back down. And I did that to put some, anxiety in their heads a bit. And then I started with a couple of translations that I like to use in my coaching course. And I ask about fear and I ask about motivation. And oftentimes I find that the things people are afraid of are the things that they really struggle to adapt to over time, or they don't have the practice in or the skill set in. So I ask, what are you afraid of? And we work through to get to a good answer for that. And I have them translate to, I struggle with this. I'm working on this. And then we also talk about motivation. Like, what's the thing that motivates you? Because I want people to have a light at the end of the tunnel. And I find that things people are motivated by are also things that are fun and that they enjoy and that they like to do. I'm really motivated by the stuff that I like to do. And that implants a bit of joy in their head. And so as we're going through this, there's a battle between, this thing that you're afraid of, whatever it might be. And for some people, they said responsibility, letting other people down, right? Those are some deep fears. And yet their eyes are set on the things that are so joyful, right? So that's the intention that we went out with. And then each person had their own reason why, they're doing it. And over the next 4 hours, there's points where we split up. I'm going a little fast, someone else going a little slow. And so I look at my watch, it's been 15 minutes. All right, let me stop and turn around, wait, we'll regroup. And I'll just ask questions like, hey, how's it going? What's on your mind? What are you thinking about? What were you thinking about when you took that picture? And those simple questions just get people to think about the joyful stuff, I found, or we work back to the joy. So in this 5-hour time span, we're extracting some stories, really tense moments in people's lives that are recurring, that are coming back to them now as they're struggling. And I mean, just constant climbing, right? Legs are burning, right? Packs are heavy. It's tough. And every time, not every time, but as often as I can, I'm reminding them of that joyful experience that they're anticipating. And we build up so much, anticipation that makes it so sweet when you actually get up to the top. And I'll tell you a really cool story, something that happened while we were up there. I didn't see it. I was a little bit ahead, but as we're hiking up this mountain, one of the participants, his name is Austin. He saw this girl who was sitting by a rock, taking a break, and she was crying. And the coach and this guy walked up to her and said, hey, what's going on? And so she ends up saying to him how this is really hard. She was by herself. She had a really tough week and she was just dealing with a lot. And so he walked her through what are you afraid of? What motivates you? Got her to stand up, gave her a hug. And she ended up, finishing, getting to the top. We saw her at the top, hugged her again. And we got a picture with her. It's great. She was smiling. But I recognized that. He told me right after this happened, he told me the story. And I recognized in him, hey, you're playing out that fear, that you were holding on to. You're playing out the solution. You're playing out what you want to do for people. You want to help people and be able to provide comfort and security. That's what his thing was. And it was really powerful to watch that.
Yeah. Celebrating at the top of the mountain with her sounds like an extra special moment too. So that's really cool. Well, you've told us a lot about your son. It sounds really it sounds amazing. And I'd want to know, like, what would you say your social rebellion is in what you're doing, or what do you want to create?
My social rebellion. Well, we've spoken about my views on education in the past. Like I talked about before, I was a rebellious kid, and I saw school from an early age as something that I had to do, and didn't find much value in it. We can expand on that. What I saw in school was a place to go and sit down and do what you're told, and really so that your parents could go to work so that they could try to encourage you to follow and get in line and live in this box. And later on in life is when I came up with these thoughts, but at the time I was just frustrated. Like, why do I have to sit here? What's the point? I was good at school too. I had I got good grades for the most part until I had to start doing homework, and then I got terrible grades. Would always pass tests or do really well on tests and learned really fast. I attribute that to good memory. I don't know. And I felt that it was a waste of time. And as I, got older, I started to think about that a lot more. Like, why did I feel that? Other kids don't feel that, or maybe they do, and they're just not saying anything or acting out. I had the balls to, mess around, right? Not take it so seriously. And I went to college and the same thing happened. I thought it was going to be different because I'm choosing what I want, right? I'm choosing the thing that I want to study. I'm choosing the people I want to be around, the school that I go to, the classes that I take, what I wear, things like that. And I still felt very confined, except when I took like a couple of different classes. Like, there were some that were great. It really depended on the professor. That was something that I realized early on. And as I got older, and even as I got into education, because I thought, that was a good career. I could do that. I could teach. It wasn't fulfilling because kids weren't really gaining much. The kids I was teaching, it was like an inner city school in Staten Island, and they were sometimes not getting picked up by their parents, which was really frustrating. Or sometimes they'd show up really late because their parents overslept. And it was just a place to drop off the kids, I realized, like I said before. And they weren't getting an education. They were just getting like hammered and drilled on knowledge, which may or may not help them. But what they really needed was like really good role models and socialization and some freedom and, some experience outside their bubble. So that's what formed my whole rebellion against education. And what I envision, and the vision of the Summit Academy, is to empower leaders of the future. I can see that happening now and downstream in different ways. And when I really dreamt this up, I established, what phases could occur in the next 10 years. And ultimately, I do envision a facility, a school, some place where kids can go and learn valuable skills like leadership development skills, like communication skills, emotional intelligence skills, business skills, things like that. That's where I see this going in 8 to 10 years. Right now, I know that the lowest hanging fruit is the parents. And that's where that's where I am right now. My son is 10 months old today, and he is my teacher. He is the greatest gift I could imagine having. And I wrote this post this morning, just thinking about him. It was, I don't remember exactly. It was something along the lines of how I'm really grateful and proud of who I am. And the child in me would be happy to become this person, right? Because what I feel every day is happiness and fulfillment and joy. And if I knew as a kid that I could feel these things as an adult, my life would have been a little different, I imagine. And I realized there's something I can do about it. It's what I do with my son. It's being a parent. If I can show him what's possible, what's really out there, what's possible inside, how you can feel, how you can experience life, then I think I've done a good job as a parent. And that is a gift for me, right? To be able to love him in that way. And I know that other parents feel the same. The guys that were on my trip, 2 of them are dads, and one of them is planning. And so like it's on their minds, and that wasn't even intentional. It just so happened. Now I realize, well, I can aim directly at parents because it reaches the kids downstream. And 5-10 years, hey, maybe take out the maybe, we have a network, we have a community of parents who give a shit and who see a greater future for their world and also know how to empower children. And so that's where my vision is long-term. And right now it's starting with my retreats, my leadership development course, and which is called Impact because of the impact it can have on the world and on children. And in a couple of years, I can see that starting to grow into something really, really amazing.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say, like, students like you are what challenged my teacher brain to think differently. So the students that are there questioning, being like, what is the point of this, are very necessary to challenge the teachers to grow and develop and question themselves too. So I'm going to say you were most likely a very great teacher for your teachers as
I like to
well
think
with that. Because I've had a number of students that would question, like, why am I doing this? I don't want to do this. And they were my greatest teachers and challenged me the most. So and helped me see differently too. Like you're saying, it's basically daycare. So thank you for wanting to think outside of the box.
Yeah, it's interesting how you're telling your story and how much you and Kristen have in common and like wanting to impact the parents to have a greater impact on more children. So this is the first thing I thought of. I'm like, you guys are like the same.
We've gotten along pretty well since we met, right, Kristen?
Yeah.
Definitely shared a lot of those values and beliefs. And I think that's what it is. It's how, what are parents' values and what do they believe is important? And where is their information coming from too? And how are they being challenged on that? That's where my mind is at.
Yeah, it's when I first started realizing, like, internally, me changing helped within the classroom because it was helping me breathe better. It was helping what I was thinking in my head, and it helped bring my stress levels down. My first initial thought was like, more teachers need this. And I realized after a while though, like currently where teachers are, there's way too many things on their plate that unless this is already a road that they're going down on their own, it's not new information they're ready to take on. It's somewhere where they need to be ready for it because there's so much going on. But parents, like, because again with teachers, like they have 30, some of them have 30 kids, like you're trying to bring this up to 30 kids, and that's 30 different styles of learning too, where with parents they've got one, I mean some have 10 kids, but like, it's a smaller number of kids that they have, and there's more immediate, like I want to see this change because parents feel that stress of those little reflectors being shown back at them of all the things that they still have, maybe they've hidden within themselves, of like, why are they acting like this? Because they're reflecting it from you.
Yeah, I like how you did say like parents, no, teachers don't really have the space for it unless they're already on that journey or it's something they want. And I imagine teachers at some point are also parents or vice versa. And that's, you know, when I look at the guys that I work with, and I never intended to work specifically with men. And it seemed to just have happened that way. But they all have a lot of other reasons other than parenting, right? That they are looking for support. And usually what I notice is they'll see like problems in other areas of their lives. That's where they feel the need to change, and they take things out on their kids, or when they're with their kids, they a lot of the behaviors are more ingrained or more responsive and reactive versus intentional, right? But outside of that, they're for the most part trying to be really intentional, right? Until they've started to do the personal development work, and then they realize everything is everything, and they have to if you apply it to, you know, business or your personal feelings, it's going to carry over to every other relationship in your life, including your kids. So having like the intention for me to like originally it was entrepreneurship and leadership as a business owner, which is really valuable, I've noticed. And then also like, hey, this is working and it's helping become better parents and spouses, better leaders in their community. It has a significant impact, whether it's for the intention of teaching or business or for the intention of parenting.
Fix my mic real quick. Sorry, there's noise.
Is it slowly like drooping down?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
Making noise. Okay, go ahead, Kron.
I was going to ask, like, we talk a lot about good trouble, and I want to know what good trouble means to you, and what are you doing to create that good trouble?
Good trouble. That's not something I've thought about, actually. Can you define that?
That was my question to you. So like good trouble is really about going against the status quo, for really doing what you consider to be right compared to what's normal. That's what good trouble means to me.
Or like I've been accused by Mark England of being a pot stirrer. So I take that in the positive sense of like getting people to think about what they're doing by questioning.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I do. Now I understand the question. Thank you. Yeah. I notice a lot of conflict around me, and I've always done a good job of avoiding it. And you can tell, you know how that usually works out, right? You avoid conflict for too long, right? You end up lost or You end up with a lot of conflict around you. And so, lately I've been thinking on, what it is about me that makes me like resistant to conflict or want to run away from it. And so, hey, let me see what happens when I just create it in people. Because you learn some communication skills, and you have superpowers sometimes, or you learn some sales skills too, and you have the ability to manipulate people's emotions in a good way, right? Get people to think like you said, Kristen. It's exactly what I did, on the retreat, especially on that mountain, is get people in a headspace where they're thinking, and internally battling themselves. And creating that conflict. And I've noticed in my ability to do that, I can tune in way better to people and to people's emotions, and also be able to serve better, right? I have this one client, we work one-on-one together, and we've worked together in the past for different reasons, fitness and nutrition. We did some mindset coaching a couple of years ago. And recently she asked me for some help managing her stress, which I've been told I'm good at. And I didn't know where we were going to take it. I didn't know what we were going to do. And I knew I could help her because we had a good relationship. And so that made it, that made it like where she could be vulnerable and I could experiment. Right. And so, we've done numerous sessions at this point. We meet weekly. And there was one session we did a couple of weeks ago where my intention was to get her pissed off and say everything that could potentially trigger her, while we were, in between doing some breathing exercises. And I just kept poking and probing, right? Some really uncomfortable things. Now I had the relationship with her already. So like we established some boundaries, and I knew what I could do with her. And the result was this massive emotional climax, right? And then some down regulating and more trust and understanding, her with herself. And yeah, that's how I imagine creating good trouble is getting to that boundary, right? Just right at it with people, so where you can help, and that's what I find myself doing in a lot of different ways, a lot of different areas in my coaching and these retreats. Right, I bring people right to the edge and get them to challenge their comfort zone, step outside, because usually, and I think this is a quote from a book, I'm not sure, it might be, the best things in life are on the other side of fear. Right. And if I can get people to look over the edge, give them a little scare, right, and then show them that they can hold themselves up, then that's good. That's good trouble to me.
Yeah, that other side of fear. I've also heard like that the body doesn't recognize the difference between fear and excitement. Like they feel the same within the body. So being able to push that when you like, are you feeling fear or is this excitement that you're feeling? And can you dip your toe in that and then test it out and see?
There's a little pattern interruption. People scared shitless, and you say, "Hey, what are you so excited about?"
Yeah.
Actually, that brings up something I noticed with my son, and he's 10 months old. He's little. He's adorable. And sometimes he like gets really worked up, right? Crying and screaming. And I laugh at it. It's hilarious. And I noticed something, and my wife and I both do this. We don't get like anxious or angry, or we don't think he's scared, especially like there's been times he'll like tip over, hit his head on, or something, or fall when he's trying to crawl and start crying, right? And then, the reaction is usually to coddle and tell him it's okay. We pretend it's nothing, right? Nothing happened. We just hold him, look at him, smile, breathe. And when he cries and screams, we say things like, he's so excited, or what are you excited about? We actually ask that when he's probably in pain or hurting or feeling anxious. I don't know. What do babies feel? I realized this though. They don't have labels for how they feel yet. And if we can establish early on certain responses on our end to their emotions, it can set them up for a lot of success in the future.
Yeah. I remember my oldest nephew, when he was little, like learning how to walk, he was pushing around a cart around my whole family is together, where he's going around the dining room table and it falls. And I've had a few friends that did something similar, like when their kids would fall, they wouldn't be like, "Oh no, are you okay?" Instead, they'd laugh and be like, "Oh, that was a good fall, good job." So I started observing with kids what happens when they fall. So my nephew falls. He doesn't start crying or anything like that until both his mom and my mom go, "Are you okay?" And then he started crying. And it was the reaction from the adults that got him to think, "Oh no, something happened.
Something's wrong.
Something's wrong. And now I'm going to cry." So it's interesting to be able to observe like what kids pick up as well from the adults around them, of like,
I noticed they're looking for how they're supposed to react or respond. Very often my son will do that. He'll look at me before he makes any change in his face or some response. They don't have it so ingrained yet. So like us, the way we do certain things, right, it gets so automatic that it happens sometimes before we think of it. That's our autonomic nervous system. And then in babies, they're still in a developmental phase, and their neural pathways are all linked together until some of those connections get severed and certain connections get solidified. And so over as they're experiencing things, they literally have a delay, whereas we might immediately go from, "Oh, I feel anxious. It must be because so-and-so, cut me off." And then we'll assign this thing. But kids are just confused as fuck, to be honest.
So here we're going to have a quick fun story of when I worked in childcare with babies. A couple of things that I noticed with, first, I wasn't usually in the infant room, but I would sometimes do a lunch break or a 10-minute break for the teachers in there. And there was one teacher in particular, she was usually stressed out, and you knew she was stressed out because the babies would be crying. And I'd go in for a break, and within minutes, after they got past the attachment part of, "Oh no, my teacher just left the room," they'd start calming down. They'd have fun. We'd be laughing. And then the teacher came back in, and all of a sudden they start crying again. So her stress level, she comes back in seeing they're calm, and her stress level starts to drop, but it's still there. It's way higher than mine was. So they start crying again. And then her stress would go back up and they'd start crying more. And watching and listening to these infants as they're reacting to the adults around them, is this person calm? Okay, I'll be calm. Is this person stressed? Oh no, I must be stressed. I need to be stressed about something. So they're really good vibrational readers and emotional readers, because it's where their safety is found. They aren't able to take care of themselves yet. So they pick up around them what's going on. And yeah, I had fun playing with that when I worked in childcare.
My thoughts just went to times where I've been in school and we have a substitute teacher, and they're usually happier because they, it's not their everyday thing, or they get to work with different kids every day. And the mood was different. And those are the days I remember too, right? The changes. That's interesting though.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing I got to notice was because the last little bit before I left was right when COVID started, was that kids, infants, when they could no longer see my mouth to figure out like what was going on, they would have to make eye contact to figure out, can I trust this adult or not? And so I'd watch these infants like going from their parent where I'm feeling safe to, oh, they're handing me over to somebody else. Like, look at me and make eye contact and read from my eyes. Like, am I safe with you or not? So yeah, they have a lot of little fun things you can watch for. So now you can try those on your son too and be like, what more am I noticing?
Do you think you can teach that to a person, or reteach it, that intuition, that response, that ability to empathize and read people?
I think it can be retaught, but it's a lot harder to reteach because you have all the stories and all the baggage to work around, where it's going to work out so much better if you can keep that open from the beginning.
Yeah. I'm thinking in adults, in parents. One of the modules, one of those 10 skills that I teach is actually, there's a couple of them that are related, but conflict resolution and communication skills, or communication. And when I talk about communication, it's empathy and compassion, and how you can combine what you feel in your heart with your thoughts in your head, and be able to express that intellectually. So be able to articulate it. That's what I define as empathy. So you can feel what people feel, right? Or understand how people are feeling, and then be able to articulate it. That I've noticed you can teach. You can teach people how to question and get people, or not get people, but create a space for vulnerability. And then be able to articulate it, be able to say it out loud. That you can definitely teach.
Have you heard of the holistic psychologist?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Dr. Nicola Pera is a holistic psychologist, and her work she has a book, How to Do the Work. And a big part.
I've heard of the book.
Yeah. So with that, she helps people by doing the work, get to that place where they can start recognizing those things. But what is mainly needed to be able to get to that point is to work through the childhood stuff that we picked up along the way. So the attachment styles to our parents, like learning all our trauma responses, so that we can clear out all that stuff, because that gets in the way. We respond to people based off of what we picked up in childhood. So when you can get that out of the way, you can open back up that intuition and empathy. But you got to do the work first, so, to figure out you.
Yeah. And for people listening who are like on that path, for me, it was not a flip of the switch like that, or even noticeable until, right, years of work in. And that's a beautiful thing. It can be done though. Right. I see it in some of my family sometimes, the patterns, seeing, here's the example, my mom and my sister, right? And seeing in my sister patterns and behaviors that I saw when I was 6 years old or 7 years old in my mother. And it's not even like what I'm remembering or thinking about, like a specific moment. I remember the vibe, right? How it felt to be around certain times, or certain, when certain things were happening, or in certain situations. I remember certain cues that built up to certain reactions. And I mean like angry or stressful reactions. And I laugh at it when I see that, because it's like looking at a time machine. And I think to myself, well, what am I doing that is just a pattern of behavior I learned from my mom or my dad or from someone in my childhood? What are the things? And even though I've been doing like personal development work, we can say, for a long time, and we can go back 10, 11 years when I started doing breath work and meditation and mindfulness practices. Even though I've been doing all of that, I still recognize certain behaviors in myself, certain patterns, that the key is now the awareness that I have around it. I can course correct much quicker now than I could when I was just starting to understand myself and, what made me, right? It's great to be able to know that that's possible, I think.
Yeah. Clear out all the weeds first.
So where can our listeners go to find out more about you and what you're up to?
Mysummit.academy is my website. That is a .academy. That's an extension. That's where you can get all information about my upcoming adventures. We are planning Fit for Adventure 2.0, which is the first week of October, right where you're at, Kristen, in Oregon.
Wait. You're having something in Oregon in October, did you say?
I just planned this yesterday. Yeah.
What are the dates?
So the 3rd is the Monday.
Oh, that's my birthday. We'll stay till the end of the week and come bring everybody to my festival.
Yeah. So the plan is, we haven't set dates yet. I'm imagining the 3rd to the 7th. And then my birthday is on the 9th. So we can have a party.
Yeah. Come to my festival in Southern Oregon.
Yeah.
Party.
So yeah, we're going to be, the plan is the Twin Sisters Wilderness. I'm doing this with Ben Walker. We're collaborating, co-conspirating on this event. His audience is all dads, so it works out. And yeah, we're going to do some backpacking up in the wilderness and some rock climbing. And there's this festival I heard of that weekend that we might go to. Should be fun. Yeah, so that's happening. All information on that will be on that website in the next couple of weeks. That's still new. And then my Instagram, Matt_G32 is the handle for now until I change it. That's it. I invite people to check out some of the things on my Instagram. I just put up a video from our retreat, which is pretty epic. There's some emotional climaxes in that video. It's pretty cool. And that's it. That's where I can be found. That's what I'm up to. I appreciate this time. Always fun.
And so, may have a last question for you after this one. Sure. Actually, I'm going to ask before we get there. You gave us a pirate joke. Do you remember what it was? If you don't, we're going to completely skip it. Okay, because you didn't leave an answer either.
I know. And I anticipated you to ask and then I would have the answer, but I totally forgot the answer.
So we'll skip that one. Although the question was, how do you know you've got a pirate's attention? So none of us know. If any of you listeners know.
All right, there is an answer for that. I'll tell it to you later when I remember what it was.
So in the meantime, how would you recommend our listeners start their own pirate life? What steps would you recommend they take?
Start looking around and take inventory of what you like and what you don't like. And that's around and inside too. One of the tools I teach is stress management as a leadership skill. And you can, manage your own stress or manage your teams or your environment's stress. You bring your energy into the room, right? And the first step, let's become aware of what the signals are inside and outside. Look at your environment, take inventory, and then do something, right? Decide, well, what is important to me? What are my values? And how does everything that's happening around me align with those? That's how we define integrity, right? Like I started this with, I want to create something in integrity with everything about me, right? All of my values, right? So most of the time, people are going to tell you you can't do that when you try to change things. And those are the things you should do. All right. That's it.
Nice. Did you remember the answer to how you get a pirate's attention? No,
I
okay.
didn't.
Well, maybe someday we'll get the answer.
Did you? I'm going to Google it really quick.
Well, you've
Because
got our
that'll trigger a, one of my memories. How do you get a pirate's attention? No.
Oh no, you've got ours now.
I don't know.
You get a pirate's attention?
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Not even the internet.
You look them in the eye. That's it. You look them in the eye. The one eye. That's what I did remember. There you go.
We know.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for helping us just over a year ago to get started on this podcast. We appreciate both of those things. Oh, Kristen and her mic again.
That's three funny things that Kristen's done by accident. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now I'm gonna stop. How am I doing? Like everything's falling. I don't know why. Yes.